Hare Krishna. My name is Mitravan. I'm from America, and I've been asked to speak a little bit how I came to Krishna Consciousness. So, more basically, I come from a Christian background. My family is Christian. I come from the southern parts of the United States, which is predominantly a Christian area, Protestant Christian. And I wasn't so much into it growing up. I would go to church, but I wasn't so interested. And in my teenage years, I just sort of like got disassociated from it. The philosophy of it didn't really make so much sense to me compared to, the worldview of science, etc., like that. So when I went to college, I started getting into different philosophies. I was interested in Buddhism specifically. I sort of had my own philosophy, but I based it off Buddhism because some things in Buddhism, it didn't make sense to me. I was into consciousness at the time specifically. And I was into the things, like karma, reincarnation, liberation, nirvana, these sort of like ideas in Buddhism. That sort of like interested with me and it clicked with me and it made sense to me. But what didn't make sense is, it seemed to me that consciousness was like, how to say, it was like a central factor, basically. It was like, it didn't change. Whereas Buddhism says like it's temporary. It ceases to be. It's like, it comes from void, literally. So it didn't really, the full philosophy didn't really like click so much with me, although it had some pretty good elements. So, I was in college at the time. I was studying chemistry. And the whole reason I studied chemistry was because I was, more out of philosophy than anything. I was thinking, well, if I study chemistry, then, well, the world is nothing but chemicals. If you boil it down to it, I was thinking like that. So anyway, I may as well study chemistry. So I was studying like that. And then, so simultaneously, I wasn't so much sure what to do with my life. I sort of went to college like that. My family paid for it. And, but really I was more interested in like the spiritual side of life, I guess you could say from the beginning. And, my family was a little wealthy growing up. So I had, I had a pretty high standard of living compared, not like super rich, but I had a pretty high standard of living compared to like most people. So I didn't really, in terms of like, desire for like a big house or like something like that, I had those things and it didn't really make me happy. It didn't really bring like lasting satisfaction. And, there were like, core philosophical questions about like, why am I here? Why do I have to die? Who am I? Am I this? I could quite clearly understand I'm not this body, but I couldn't quite understand who I was. So anyway, I was interested in consciousness at the time. And, I would read various things online, not so many books, but I would look online, research different philosophies online, trying to piece some sort of like truth together to like make sense of everything. And, one day I just happened to come across, somehow I came across the Wikipedia page of all things for the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. First, I came across the Wikipedia page for Krishna. I had no idea who Krishna was, actually. I had zero idea. Somehow or other, even though I was interested in like different Eastern philosophies like that, and I read quite a lot about them, somehow I never touched anything with relating to, I guess you could say, Hinduism like that. So I never like got into like that sort of like side of the philosophy. So anyway, I was reading about Krishna on this Wikipedia page. And then I go to this page about, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And then, on that page, there's a quote there by Srila Prabhupada that's on his album that he recorded in 1966. To paraphrase it, he says there that, there are different levels of consciousness. There's sensual consciousness, mental consciousness, intellectual consciousness, and then there's the transcendental platform of consciousness. And the chanting of this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, it takes place, by chanting it, you will once transcend all the other levels of consciousness, and this chanting takes place on the transcendental level. Something like that. That quote was there. And that really interested me because I hadn't really heard of so much of an idea of different levels of consciousness. Well, I had some sort of experience like that, but it was very clear. So I knew what a mantra was. I was doing meditation at the time, sort of like breath meditation like that. It was having some effect. I was looking for something because I could understand just by like philosophy alone, it won't like get you there. You have to have some sort of like sadhana, we say now. You have to like practice something So I read that on the Wikipedia page. I just started chanting Hare Krishna, this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. I could tell it worked. Compared to the sort of meditation I was doing before, the mantra meditation, the chanting of Hare Krishna, it was much more effective than whatever meditation I was doing before. Even just 5 minutes of chanting Hare Krishna, it was worth like half an hour of like the breath meditation I was doing before. So I could tell, this has there's like something here in this mantra. So from that day, I just started chanting this. I didn't really know so much about who Krishna was, actually. I read like a little bit up on the Wikipedia page. I saw on that page, it said like Krishna is like the God of love and compassion or something like that. I didn't really read so extensively, but I saw on that page that Krishna had spoke Bhagavad Gita, which is like a religious book, a very famous book. And then so from that day, I knew a little bit about Krishna, but not really so much information. And I just started chanting Hare Krishna every day. A little bit, not like really. Maybe I'll chant like, like 10 minutes of Hare Krishna. I wasn't chanting on like beads or anything like that. I didn't even know what that was. So I think maybe 4 or 5 weeks after I started chanting, I was on my college campus, and I remember quite distinctly, this person, he asked me, "Do you go to school here?" I said, "Yes, I go to school here." And this was in like the sort of like cafeteria area, I guess you could say, of the school. So I thought he was like asking for directions. And then he said, "Okay, great." Of course, now I understand what he was doing. So he showed me a book. He pulled out a book, and it was Bhagavad Gita. So I had heard of that Bhagavad Gita from reading it online previously, but I didn't really read physical books. I wasn't so much like into that. Even though I would read online, I wasn't like a physical book kind of guy. But I could immediately tell that this was something like extraordinary, that I was just a few weeks prior, I had no idea who Krishna was, anything about him. And then just shortly thereafter, somebody's giving me a Bhagavad Gita, or somebody's showing me a Bhagavad Gita. So I pull out my wallet, I take the book from him, and I give him all the money I had in my wallet, which was only like $20 at the time, something like that. So he gave me a Bhagavad Gita, Science of Self-Realization, which is another book they have, Easy Journey to Other Planets, also Perfection of Yoga. So the first thing I read was that Bhagavad Gita because it interested me so much. So, of course, I had no idea what Bhagavad Gita was. I had zero idea what it was. So I started reading through the Gita, and I read through the introduction, then the first chapter. I remember the first chapter was very difficult. I had no idea who Sanjay was, Dhritarashtra, anybody like that. But I powered through it, and I remember quite distinctly, I think it's chapter 2, verse number, I forget exactly. But Prabhupada has a purport around there in the early verses of the second chapter. Srila Prabhupada explains that there's different levels of realization in regard and of the absolute truth. There's Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And he compares it to realization of the sun. There's the sunshine, somebody who is more advanced studying the sun globe itself, the surface of it. And then the most advanced student enters into the sun and study or like tries to understand the presiding deity there. They're all topics. So they're all students of the same topic, but there's different levels of the topic. So I could immediately understand in other words, what I was sort of like grasping at is what I was trying to understand the consciousness. I could immediately understand what he's describing here, this Brahman level. And Krishna is above this Brahman and is a higher level of realization. And immediately all these other philosophies I was into at the time or previously, immediately all clicked. They're hitting at this impersonal stage, but there's something higher than this impersonal stage. And when I read that just made so much sense to me. It like changed my life practically. And then I kept reading through the book. I finished the book, and I didn't really understand so much, to be honest. I understood that Krishna is the origin of everything, that he created this world, that somehow I'm in this world to have a relationship with him and to remove all this material conditioning to get liberation. I have to chant Hare Krishna, follow, these regular principles, no illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling, and like that, and chant Hare Krishna. So I just started doing that. I got a book in March of 2017. A devotee named Parama Karuna Prabhu in America. He's an Indian body devotee in America. He lives in a van. He just travels all around America. I learned about him much later at the time. And he's from Chicago, but he travels all around America. And so he gave me that book. That was in March. So he gave me a card to his temple too. He's based in Chicago, which I was in I was in Alabama, the north part of Alabama. It's a place called Florence. It's like an insignificant like town. So Chicago is something like, by drive, it's like 9 hours or something like that. It's very far. So I was never going to go to that temple. It was so far. I almost went for one Janmashtami, but then I decided no, it's way too far. 9 hours one way, 9 hours the other way is like too much. So I didn't have any association. So I read through the Bhagavad Gita, and then I wanted to read something else. And I saw in the Gita Prabhupada quotes all the time from a book called Srimad Bhagavatam. So I just looked online, and I started ordering individual volumes. Now we have this 18-volume set. And there's the 44 set also. We have that in America. So I would buy first canto part 1. I would buy that, read it. Then part 2, part 3. I got up to second canto part 2. And then I just bought the full set from online. I figured, well, anyway, may as well save the money. Because one book is $30. To buy the whole thing is like $300. So I just bought the whole set. So I got the book in March. By December, I started chanting 16 rounds and following all the 4 regular principles. I had never been to a temple at that point. That was just from the books. I understood this. And then the next year in college, that next spring, I was thinking, well, I was so much into it, I could understand that, like, I don't want to, I just, oh, here we go. This is it. This is like the reality. This is what I was looking for. I didn't want to, like, just waste my life, like, working a job like so many other people were. I could say they were completely ignorant of, like, any sort of, like, who I am. Why are we here? They're just going on a path that, like, okay, I'm born. This is my religion. I just follow this. I have to work a job. I have to get a family, and seeking after some sort of pleasure, but they never really, like, inquire into something. So I specifically did not want to do that with my life. I wanted to do something spiritual with my life and somehow, attain spiritual realization, whatever, like, my conception of that was, and this, like, using my life for that. So I saw that, of course, on the cover of those books, Srila Prabhupada he's titled as Founder Acharya of the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. So I had looked that up at that point. I was looking at what is ISKCON. So I saw it's a society of people who practice this. I was quite amazed, actually, because hardly the people around me, nobody was spiritually inclined at all. So I was quite amazed to find there's a whole society of people who follow these teachings and can understand, like, who understand, like, what reality is. Otherwise, it felt like the outside world is just like a big, like, phantasmagoria. We use that word, like a big, like, show, basically. So the following year after I got the book, I reached out to a temple in Atlanta, which is the closest city near me. It's something like 3-4 hours away from where I was. So anyway, that's a long story itself. I'll make it short. I saw a video. I will watch Bhagavatam classes online since I didn't have any devotee association. The only devotee I met at that point was the devotee who gave me the book. So I would watch classes online as I took breakfast before I went to class, like that. And then so I wanted to join somewhere. So I reached out to Atlanta Temple, and previously I had seen a video actually by a devotee. His name is Shiki Mahiti Prabhu. He's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. He recorded. I actually got into watching these How I Came to Krishna Consciousness, like, videos by I think Mayapur TV. They do it. So I had seen his video. They had just uploaded it, and I had watched it, and I thought, wow, this is a very nice devotee. But I saw he was in India. I was thinking, well, he's living in India. I'm all the way in America. When am I going to go to India? I'll never meet him. I called Atlanta Temple shortly thereafter, and he answered the phone. He's temple president of ISKCON Atlanta. And so I spoke to him, and he was telling me that, like, yeah, you could come here, but there's a better place for you to come. There's a center up in Philadelphia. You'll get trained there. So for the summer, summer break we have in America between semesters. So I spent my summer break at staying at an ashram that was in Philadelphia. And then I had asked the sannyasi, I guess you could say, the authority over that ashram was Devamrita Swami. So I asked him, like, what should I do? I'm here. I had 1 year of college left. That was my third year. Should I finish my college or maybe I had 2 years left. I forget exactly. No, I had 1 year left. So I asked him, what should I do? Should I just join the ashram? I wanted to join the ashram, but he was like, well, you're almost done. You may as well just finish the degree and then go through with it. So I went back. I finished my last year of college. It was very difficult, actually. Super, super difficult. In that time, I finished reading the Bhagavatam. I think I also finished Chaitanya. I started Chaitanya Charitamrita, I think, at that time. And specifically, actually, to backtrack a little bit, another thing that's coming to my mind, before I had reached out to ISKCON Atlanta and gotten in contact with Shikimahiti Prabhu, I had read a verse in the 4th canto, where Dhruva Maharaj, he praised the Supreme Lord after getting his darshan. Of course, Dhruva Maharaj, he wanted a kingdom greater than his father, but actually what he prayed to Lord Vishnu for when he actually saw Lord Vishnu was the association of his devotees. So that verse struck me. And also in the purport, I think, to that verse, Srila Prabhupada writes that if one is trying to become Krishna conscious and at the same time remain aloof from the association of this international society, one is living in a great hallucination. So I figured, at that point, I figured, well, I should reach out and get in contact with devotees at that point. So I had spent the summer there. I've gone back and finished my college degree. Then I joined there in Philadelphia. I'll just make a long story short. I joined there in Philadelphia, that ashram there. From Philadelphia, I spent a couple months in Philadelphia. From Philadelphia, I transferred to a ashram in New York because it was a brahmachari ashram, whereas in Philadelphia, it wasn't so much of a brahmachari ashram. So that was quite a culture shock for me going into a brahmachari ashram, especially in New York, because I'm from a smaller place in India, I guess you could say I'm from like a village, but we don't use that term in America. So I'm from like a very small town in America. So going to New York was quite a culture shock, what to speak of staying in the brahmachari ashram. But I was there, and then I served there for almost a year, something like that. We did Harinam every single day. We distributed books in the subways of New York. And then, from there, from New York, we came down to Atlanta during COVID, funnily enough. So I ended up spending time in Atlanta. And then now I'm here in India for some time. I help. Later, I got that ashram. There are some disciples of my spiritual master there, His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Swami. So I got in contact with, I got their association, and I heard about my spiritual master. I heard about him there at the time. Actually, previously, I had read some of his books in Philadelphia. Books he has dealing with the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, preaching, etc., like that. So I got attracted by his style of preaching. And so I was in New York at that time. Then we came down to Atlanta. And in Atlanta, I received initiation in, I think, 2019, something like that. I forget the exact date, 2019, 2020, one of the two. And actually, that must have been, 2020 must have been. And then, so now I'm in India for some time. And then it's nice. My main service, I help my spiritual master with his books. Somehow or other, I have the great fortune to do that. So, somehow or other, Krishna, he showered some mercy upon me somehow or other. I just so happened to stumble across like a Wikipedia page for the Hare Krishna mantra. I just started chanting it. And then it had an effect. I could tell it had an effect. Then Krishna sent a devotee. He gave me his Bhagavad Gita. And like that. There's nothing, in one sense, there's nothing like extraordinary. But in another sense, it is quite extraordinary. Everybody who comes to Krishna Consciousness, it's quite extraordinary how everybody comes. So, so that's my story. My parents, that was a big austerity at the time. That was quite difficult. I remember moving into the ashram at the time, going to Philadelphia, because so many different things. They're Christian background, and they're not really philosophical, as with much people in that sort of area of the United States. They're religious, but they don't give much thought to like their religion at all, or philosophy in general. They just kind of like go on with life. So initially I tried to explain to them, what, I tried to get, explain to them some philosophy, but they didn't understand it. I could tell is like useless. So initially they gave me some, I guess you could say pushback, resistance, like that. They were upset because they were thinking, you could do so much in terms either like materially or even within Christianity, you could be such like if you want to go that route, you could be such like, what do you call that? Like a pastor, a very like, a minister, something like priest. We use that word in like English. You could be like a very like, use the same like talents in like Christianity. You could be so much effective. But, I didn't find anything there in Christianity. But anyway, yeah, it was difficult at the time because they were upset with me, but I very much wanted to do this. So, yeah, initially it was difficult. They were upset. I had to tolerate them being upset, but they've sort of come around now, I guess you could say. Not exactly that. They wish I was doing something different, obviously, but they have some affection. They have affection for me naturally. And I tell them I'm happy doing what I'm doing. And they're happy to see me happy too. I visit them occasionally still like that. So I have a good relationship with my parents. They wish I was doing something different, but anyway, I can see with my parents that all they wanted, their whole goal was like, anyway, so many things. They're quite elderly and still they're working. And from my childhood, I saw they're working all the time. They want to retire. Finally, they've mainly retired, but they're still not happy. So like that, from the beginning, I could see like, what the path my parents was on. I didn't want to do that with my life. So, but yeah, now it's good. Like I said, they want me to do something different, but they sort of understand that like, this is what I'm doing. And they sort of accepted it like that. So that's the situation with my parents.